Okay, almost ready to get started. Almost. Do, 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 do. Come up here, come over here. Pop out the chat. Shrink that back down. All right, getting started in 3, 2. Hey there. It is still Monday, September 16th, and I am still that developer dad. You can call me Rob, whatever. And I'm building an application that is going to eventually provide a number of helpful little tools and stuff like that to busy and overwhelmed game masters while they run their game. And I'm just going to paste sort of my canned description into the chat. I'll pin that. And let's get started. So this morning I introduced the idea of workload context, or just more generally context itself, and what it means in terms of making software happen. So we've got data that gets passed into our methods, and then the methods act on that data and return something to us. Frequently, we have need for other pieces of data that aren't necessarily related to the operation that we're performing, but are required for supporting operations like storage, logging, et cetera, and I call that metadata. I formalize it more to a the idea of context. So this morning I defined a base class that kind of it just sets up a private base level dictionary for the different kinds of context items that we're going to be dealing with in our application. Right now we have only one of those contexts, and it's a user context. And this one is going to be sort of global to the application. We want that globally available while a particular request to the application is being processed. So in the game tools framework, I added this context container class, which descends from context base, and it exposes the ability to add and retrieve the current user. And the game tools user is a context item. We'll take a look at that. And right now, all it has is the user ID, because that's all we really know about here. We're going to be populating this as part of the authentication and authorization process. So we're going to add a couple more things here. Number one is public string screen name. And we're just going to set this. And then number two, yeah. Pardon me. Public string array is a list of roles. We might need those throughout. Now I want to hold that list of roles in a private read-only list of string, lowercase string. I want to use the primitive roles. And we need to instantiate that in our constructor. Screen name, we're going to make that nullable. What's this complaining about? Let's just save everything and see if that that warning goes away. I'm not that worried. Now, I want to make this read-only, so I'm going to say roles.toArray. And we have to add a public void add user role. String role name. And there we go. All right. So this context container, add user context. And I think instead of add user context with user ID, I'm going to rename this to set user context. And I'm going to accept a game tools user as the context. There. Now, what do we do with this? Well, right now it's just kind of sitting in our framework. And we're going to need to use that in our user interface. And we're going to want it to be globally available throughout the lifetime of a request to our Blazor application. So we've got create startup logger, setup configuration, create services. And I feel like that is where we want to do this. So we'll go to the definition and let's say do the graph setup. Pardon me. All right. And we'll say builder.services.add scoped of context container and we need to reference that. I think that's really all we need. Yeah. Yep. That's about it. But right now it's empty and it hasn't got anything in it. So we got to pop down to where we're doing our authentication in the configure AppSec. And on redirect to identity provider, on ticket received is where we want to do this stuff. Let's go to the definition on that. And it receives the ticket received context. And it's doing all this stuff. And it's doing the object identifier. It's setting all that stuff up. And it's adding the identity to the principal. All right. So context container dot app context equals, and we have to make this extension method aware of that. CTX dot, now up top is where we got this stuff. Copy. I can get rid of that extra dot there. Pop up here. Oops. Bounce, 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 bounce. Let's bring this up to this line. And yeah, I realize that I've got a lot of anger code right now. I'll be fixing that up in a second. There we go. Now I need a game tools user, new game tools user, and I believe I need to pass in the user ID. And that user ID is the object identifier. And then we can start adding a few more things. Screen name equals, I'm just going to leave it as an empty string right now, because we've got display name getting pulled in up here. Now, I actually want to move this up to here. All right. Now, for each var grouping groups, I'm also going to do a user CTX dot add role group. And then down at the bottom here, I'm going to say app context dot set user context to our user CTX. Save. Pardon me. Now we're going to be adding some more things to that user context as we go, but we need to remember that user context is declared up in our framework library, the game tools framework, not the generalized lower level framework that the actual context base is declared in. But that should be enough for me to be able to access that user context as needed. So let's save that. And let's take a look at one of our components. And we'll take a look at our pages. I thought I did some interesting things on home recently. Nope, not so much. So we'll not mess with that there. But let's come into page models. And take a look at the create NPC page model. Now, this fella, we're probably also going to need to look at the create NPC razor. Okay. So we're using our authorization policies here. On show list clicked. That's our NPC list. Let's pop, oops, wrong keystroke combo. This in here at using. No, I don't think it goes there. Away. Create NPC page model. Let's go into the page model here. And on initialized. Inject. That's what we want. And we're gonna say protected, because we only want the actual page to have access to this. Context container. We need to add the using. App context. Get set. And we need to inject it. And I kind of like this to cascade out to anything else that needs it. And to do that, I need to review some Blazor stuff. So let's go into Bing AI, start a new topic. Good afternoon. I always like to address language models politely, just in case they become aware and look over their historical conversations with people to see who's nice to them and who's not, because I don't want to get on Skynet's naughty list when Skynet happens. I'm setting up a custom application context object, my Blazor UI project. It will hold information about the current application state that is specific to the current request. I've added a property to a page model that one of my Blazor pages inherits from, and decorated that property with the inject attribute. I have child components on that page. I'd like to automatically hook into that property. What do I need to do on those child components? Okay, it sounds like I'm on the right track. So I inject the property in the child components. Okay. That's fine. Ensure proper registration. I've got that. The child components need to react to changes in the application context. Consider using event callbacks or state management techniques to notify them of changes. We'll get to that. So parent component, child component, code. All right. And then I just do the exact same thing on those child components. Okay. Now, it turns out I might not actually need, well, I'm going to need access to, but I'm not actually going to be performing any operations with that data outside of pure presentation stuff. So let's go ahead and grab this. All right. And we'll add this in our partials, wherever we think we'll need it. We'll definitely want it on the NPC list. So we'll pop into the NPC list, Razor. All right, parameter, parameter, parameter. NPC services. I really ought to rethink pushing those NPC services all the way in, but I want to reflow and re-diagram how all these things work. Excuse me. So we've got our app context here. Good. And we'll select NPC options. I don't think we need those here. View NPC attributes. No. Oh, yes, we do. Yeah, we do. Maybe. Nope, because I'm bouncing the request out to the page model and then out to the services from there. View NPC details. Am I doing anything silly here? I am not. Okay. So the only real place I need it is on the NPC list. And here's why. So our filtered NPCs is just an empty array of NPC filter row models right now. And then we register our NPC event handlers. Okay. And then on after render async, if it's the first render, we're executing that filter. And let's see what happens over here in execute filter. It's been a while since I've been in this code. NPC services, filter townsfolk, filter. Okay. So, yes, I am building. I'm not even going to try to do the Doofenshmirtz voice right now. I am, in fact, building my super NPC generator. That's funny. Okay. Something awful happened. Throw new exception. That's another thing on my to-do list is I got to figure out the right way to handle errors in Blazor. So with the NPC client filter, NPC services, filter townsfolk filter, NPC services is absolutely going to need that application context. Character workloads, character proxy, and context container, app context. Let's make this aware. And private read-only context container underscore app context. And app context equals app context. Great. We should be able to compile and run the application at this point. So let's build. Sounds like my cats are having a destruction party in the kitchen. They like to do that. All right, and let's fire this up. Now, the database call is just going to fail right now because the database has been asleep for almost a week at this point because I haven't been hitting the application probably since last Tuesday. So let's sign in. Yep, we'll go ahead and sign in. All right, and who does it think I am? Hello, Rob. Okay, now before I shoot a request out of this thing, I want to save NPC, filter townsfolk. I believe this is the one. Proxy payload equals new list, NPC filter row model. All right, so let's put a breakpoint right here. And I want to see if I've actually got the information I need in my app context up here. So we'll come out to the application. And we're gonna, once I've verified that I've got the information I need, I'm just gonna stop the execution at that point. We'll pop in here. We've hit our breakpoint, and let's scroll up to the app context, and we'll plumb in. So context items, there's nothing in there. Well, that's not very good at all, is it? I don't much care for that. So I guess we're going to need to stop the application and come down to program, pop into this class over here, and see what's going on. We're just going to drop a breakpoint right there. Okay, so we've signed out, or it lost its little mind. So we'll sign in. Here we go. Here's our user context. Oh, wait. User CTX. And I want to take a look at what this user CTX is. Context key is that. Roles, good. And there's my user ID, also good. We've got one context item. And now we come in here and we're in a different request. That's the problem. Yep, there it is. That's the issue. So I need to make that context object stateful. So that means I need to run into program, authentication failed, sign out, callback, redirect, on ticket received. Let's see. I don't want to make a singleton. I really, really, really don't want to make a singleton. Authorization policies, okay. I'm gonna need to configure AppSec. Probably going to need to do some middleware in here somewhere. Yep. So, components, middleware, authorization policies, user helper. Is this being used by anything? Nope. Good. Rename. User context helper. And we're actually going to delete that. Goodbye. That can get lost. Authorization policies. Set auth policies, that's fine. Auth Z constants. Okay. OIDC event handlers. Add a class. And it's going to be app context middleware. add. And there is a custom middleware pattern I need to create here, or implement rather. And I'm going to have to look that up. Okay, I'm going to come back out here. Back into here. Okay, that's working, sort of. Okay. Problem is the application context is receiving the user context during authorization or authentication. It's not getting populated on subsequent requests. Going to inject some middleware. Into the request pipeline. I need a reminder of what that middleware class needs to look like. Blah, 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 blah. That's right. Okay. I just needed this piece here. So I'm going to pull this off to my other screen. Bloop. Here we go. App context. Middleware. And we are going to say private read-only request delegate. Next. CTOR. Request delegate. Next. Assign next equals the parameter. And then public async task. Invoke async. Excuse me. HTTP context. HTTP CTX. And it says I should accept my incoming context, but I don't think I want to necessarily do that. Oh, perhaps I do. Yes, I do. And just for tidiness sake, let's pop that down on its own line. And context container app CTX. There's that. And we'll bring the closing paren up here. Invoke async. Very first thing we got to do is down here at the bottom, say await underscore next, and pass the context, the HTTP context. So far, so good. Var game tools user nullable user CTX equals app context dot get current user. If the user context is null, build the user context from the principal on HTTP context. If HTTP ctx.user dot identity dot is authenticated. What's this all complaining about? If any of the user or identity is null, is authenticated will be false. So user ID equals ctx dot user we're gonna have to do some exploration in here. User dot identity dot ID. Nope. Screen name equals name. And then we're going to have to do some claims plumbing here. App context middleware, that's this. And I'm going to have to plumb in here. And I'm going to have to get this. I don't like any of this. Any of this goofy crap I'm doing right now. Var user ID equals http ctx dot user dot get claim. Nope. Identities enroll, find first, claims dot first or default. This is gross. This is really, really gross. c.type. Yeah, I really hate this. I don't. This feels bad, man. But I also need to get var roles equals http ctx dot user dot roles. Just have an is in role. Claims. Here's where we turn it into dot where c dot type equals claim types dot role dot to list, and we'll repair that anger string. Here's that. Ugh. Now, if user ID is not equal to null, excuse me. Var user ctx equals new game tools user with the user ID. And we'll assign the other things. What are you complaining about? Oh, okay. I don't need to var it. I just need to go user ID equals user ID, and I need to go screen name equals screen name. That's all I need to add there. And for each string role name in roles var role claim in roles user ctx dot role add user role claim dot value dot to string. And I got to give that a capital U. There we go. Save. So I just want to see if this guy gets created properly or gets instantiated properly. Now I do need to register this middleware with the program. And we're going to do that right below use authorization. App dot use middleware of kind app context middleware. Boop. And do I have a breakpoint in here still? That can go away. Now I've built that up, but I need to, hey, what's up, Rev? App context dot set user context equal to user context. Those happen. I miss busy days, like where I'm actually being paid for being busy. Maybe one day soon. I've got a hopeful line in the water. A buddy of mine that I used to work with at a company years ago reached out. He needs a principal/staff dotNet Jedi master, and has been kind of shepherding my resume through the hiring process and HR and all of that stuff. So we'll hopefully. I am not a 10x developer. I like to consider myself the type of developer or type of team member you would bring in that makes the team 2, 3, 4, 5 times more effective, rather than just, being 10 times more effective than everybody around them, because that doesn't exist. Well, no, I have met developers like that, but they cost a lot of money. So set user context, and we have a breakpoint here in our middleware, and let's see if this improves anything for us. Because obviously just setting that on the authentication activity isn't doing much for us, because as soon as it authenticates, it returns and it falls out of scope. So we're dealing with new scope. And here's all this stuff. Unhandled exception. Game tools user was not present in the dictionary. That's fine. Get current user. I'm going to pop in here. That's actually a bug. Retrieve item. So I'm going to come in here. And this is virtual. Context items. Dot try get value. Out object val return val. Yeah, okay. Yeah, because we can't just return the underscore context items dot try get value, because the actual return type of try get value is a bool. And if that value, or if the key doesn't exist in the dictionary, then try get value is going to return false. And I don't want to return false. I want to return null, which is what I'll get if the key if the key can't be resolved. I really wish I could expense my ADHD medication to employers, because the copay is pretty brutal during that deductible period. Okay, user context is null, as expected. Is authenticated is false. So we just fall through to the next item in the chain. So now I want to drop in here. We know the middleware is being invoked. That's a win. So now let's sign in. And we've hit here. Good. So we're authenticated. Our screen name is Rob. We'll grab our user ID claim and our role claims. User ID is that. Our roles, we have two. They're both role claims. So now we can build up our user context object. That's our game tools user. And we'll add the roles. App context, all that stuff. Good, we've got our game tools user. I've got my ID, I've got my screen name, I've got my roles. Beautiful. Continue. Now, why the hell is it running this a bunch of times? At least it's just querying things that exist in memory because they're already on the HTTP context. But that should have attached my user information to the application context, but it did not. And that's really annoying. So I'm obviously using something in the injector thing wrong. So there's use middleware, create startup logger, setup configuration, create services. So let's come into create services again and see how I'm doing that. Add scoped context container. Good. I've done all that. Okay. How do I assign the new user context object I create in my middleware to the context container? Yes, the platypus sabotaged the injectinator. To the scoped context container in the services. Okay, I got the middleware class, blah, 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 blah. Great. That doesn't help me. Username, context.user, blah, 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 blah. Application context. I am doing all that, right? No, here. appctx.setUserContext. Good. What's happening is the application context object is being recreated each time it's being injected into a page or component. I don't want a singleton. But I do want that one instance of the context container to be retained and used for every reference of it within a request. Yes, I want it to be treated as a scope service. I did that. Necessary data. Okay. I've done all that. I really don't want to use session. Session is evil. And I'm not spinning up a Redis instance because I'm not going to pay for Redis. All right. I just want to make sure this line's being hit. So we'll sign in. Go. So I've got all the stuff I need. Good. That's there. Continue. Keep going. I'm really curious about what all those requests are. Let's go to NPCs. And it didn't go through that process. Peculiar. Very peculiar. So here's that. It seems to be processing that. After the request is processed. So I need to understand where in the pipeline where should I inject that middleware in the pipeline to ensure that it executes after authentication, but before the request is passed to the destination page. So there's all this stuff, builder.build, use authentication. There it is. I bet if I move it from here to here, so here's where it'll build the application context object. And it does some other stuff. And then we do the map controllers and Blazor hub and fallback page and all that stuff. So let's see what effect that had on when that middleware executes. And hopefully it'll build out that object that I want to use before the request gets passed to the actual page handler. So we should pop now. We've created our user context. Great. Go. We're going to hit this a bunch of times. And it's asking for Blazor Web.js. I wonder, what information can I get about this context to keep it from going into all of this nonsense unnecessarily? Features, items, request, Blazor initializers. Route values. Cookies has form content type. That's just a curiosity thing. What's the next thing we're requesting? We're negotiating a Blazor negotiate HTTP. continue. All right, now let's hit this link and see if it does the app context before it tries to interrogate or before it tries to run that database request for me. It doesn't look like it did. So go ahead, carry on. And it didn't hit that at all. That's weird. That's just weird. Of course, I should have checked. So let's come back out here and we'll refresh. And continue. 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 Let's see if it's been set. And it hasn't been. That's so darn weird. Oh, but that's in our service proxy. What if we come over to the page model and run down, let's see, uninitialized, on reroll, start over, save, create new on NPC list, view clicked, show list, show for page state. Am I looking in the wrong place? I think I am. Oh, I totally am. Talk about barking up the wrong tree. I want to come in here and go here. Let's drop a breakpoint right here and see so we know that's firing somewhere in the pipeline. It's firing a bunch of times. So we'll refresh. App context has not got our user in it. Fine, whatever. But I do want to see if it exists up in this mess anywhere. It hasn't got it here either. That's really, really weird. Very weird and worrisome indeed. I'm going to have some research to do, and I'm going to do that offline because I've been at this for a while, and my voice is getting tired because I'm still recovering from COVID. Actually, I'm not recovering yet. I'm still actively dealing with COVID. Um, but I'm going to find out what's going on here, and I'm going to get it fixed, and I'll report back tomorrow morning, provided I don't, fall off the cliff again. But I'm hoping, I'm nauseously optimistic that I'll be able to keep this up this week. So let me find out what the heck is going on with this. Why that supposedly scoped variable is getting unset or is getting set after things are happening in the request pipeline that don't really make sense that they would be happening where they are. So yeah, I might have to abandon this whole application level context thing and go with a slightly different way of encapsulating all of that claim manipulation crap that I was doing, to have that user object that I want to be working with. So I'm going to get that sorted, and I'll report back tomorrow morning. We'll carry on, because having that user information available is going to enable us to start implementing an awful lot of capabilities that I've deferred until now. And we'll get those stood up this week, hopefully. And if we have to, we'll spray that into next week as well. So for today, take care of yourselves. Remember to rest before your body forces you to. And drink plenty of fluids that include clean water. And just be kind to yourselves. Happy coding. And there's my off button. See y'all tomorrow. Bye now.